Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll receive insight, inspiration, and advice for living your purpose and making an impact as a conscious leader. You'll also hear inspirational stories of other conscious leaders who are living and leading from a place of mission, vision, and purpose. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with me, your host, Jennifer Spore. I am so overjoyed and excited to welcome as a guest to the show today, Susan Burrell. Susan is the author of Live Your Empowered Life, a 30-day journey book, and she has a thought-provoking podcast called Empowering Chats with Susan Burrell that can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular platforms. Her guided meditations are accessible through the Insight Timer app. Susan is a feisty Scorpio and was even born with the red hair to back it up. I love that. She has navigated life by learning how to listen within to that divine urge that keeps pointing her in the direction of her life's purpose, even when she can't see the road. She is an intuitive healer and spiritual guide in the crossroads of life. With a master's degree in consciousness, Susan has been counseling and supporting people in transforming from the inside out for over 25 years. Her methods are proven because she has lived this journey to empowerment. Welcome, Susan. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Thanks for having me, Jennifer. I can't wait to see what happens.
Yes, I'm excited too. We'll see how it all unfolds. So, Susan, I would love to know more. What inspired you to actually do the work that you're doing today? I know that a lot of our experiences are, a lot of what we do is inspired by personal experience, but what was the catalyst that pulled you in that direction?
Wow. This goes back a long, long time ago. In my 20s, I've been a spiritual quester since my teens, and I didn't really understand why, except I knew there was something more, and nobody could explain it to me, and there were certain books that you were told to read that didn't really inform me because I still had questions and nobody could answer it. They just said, well, just look at it. Look in the book. It's right there. Well, no, it wasn't for me. And so I just began a quest, a metaphysical quest. And through it, I ended up studying with a couple of medicine women, a shaman. I read just about any metaphysical book I could get my hands on. And lo and behold, I ended up finding out that there was like a be-all umbrella of what I was seeking, and it's called Science of Mind. And under that, Science of Mind is like a distillation of all the ancient wisdoms, all the world religions, philosophies, psychologies. And so over a long, arduous path, I got a master's degree in consciousness. Who knew? But part of it was because I knew there was something bigger than me. And for a very long time, I had a very strong spiritual practice, but then I was living life, right? And I was pursuing an acting career, and my esteem was really low. And then I got married, and my esteem stayed really low for 28 years. And I finally got divorced. And the divorce became very contentious, which was a shock to me. But in hindsight, and people would tell me while I was going through divorce, when you look back, you're going to think it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I always wanted to slap those people when they would say that to me, because it was so painful. And what happened is during my divorce, all the things I thought I knew about myself collapsed. I mean, they shattered, they broke down. And so then I was left with, I don't know who I am. And this was at the ripe old age of 50 something. And I didn't know who I was. I'd already been doing spiritual counseling and teaching metaphysics and creating courses and working with clients and all that stuff. But when this shattering happened, I realized I didn't like myself. I didn't respect myself. I was just I was the stuff under the shoe that people talk about. That's how I felt. And yet, my students and clients and friends were all like, how can you say that about yourself? But when you've been bereft of esteem for decades, it's not easy to just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, as people used to say. So I began rebuilding myself from the inside out, and I started working more heavily with affirmations. And the one I used a lot during that time, well, there were two. One was, I love myself. I am loved. I am loved. And I love myself more than I ever have in my life. And the other one was, I trust the unknown. I relinquish the known, and I live in a field of possibility, because I had no hope. I thought I had a second half of life, and I was like, I had been told nobody wants this person, this body, this thing, And so I worked really diligently. And when different emotions would come up I was so shut down, Jennifer, emotionally, that I had tons of rage from my childhood, but rage from my marriage. And I didn't even know I was that angry until my body started breaking out in hives. And I had hives for a year. I kid you not. I was not hive free for a year. And I'd never had a hive in my life, but it was all that anger erupting through my skin to be expressed, because I had been suppressing my anger. And I was evidently suppressing my shame or guilt, or, you name it. Just trying to deal with the fear first. But so I ended up taking myself in hand, and when I would feel or not feel right, all of a sudden I would be dizzy, and I would call this person I was working with, and he'd say to me, okay, what were you thinking of right before you got dizzy? And I would have to backtrack and realize that my thoughts were triggering the emotions or the physical experience. And so I had to really become even more consciously aware. Here I have a master's in consciousness, right? But I had to become even more consciously aware of what I was avoiding, or what I had been avoiding for most of my life. And when you've been avoiding, the truth of who you are for most of your life, you don't even know that it's been hidden that long, right? I mean, so what happened is, I came out of that experience. I remember getting up one morning and I thought, wow, I actually like myself. Hey. And then I was preparing to work with, work a class. And I thought, wow, this is a really good class I've created. And I thought, I'm pretty good at what I do. I actually think I'm really good at what I do. And that was like epiphany time for me of finally recognizing that, I am a good person. I'm really smart. I am really good at what I do. But the other part about the shattering, it broke my heart open to love not only myself, but to love others more transparently. I was so vulnerable that the love that I think we all are was just pouring out of me. The love and the light was just pouring out of me, because I had no more boundaries around it, or protections. Let me put it that way. I had no more protections protecting my heart from getting hurt. So I was kind of wide open. And during that time, I realized that my intuition had amplified, and that I seemingly suddenly, right, had this ability to heal people with my hands. And in fact, there was one day I started seeing a phenomenal man who's now my current spouse. But I remember I was going over to his house, and I had my left leg was just killing me, and it felt like sciatica. This was after all the divorce and everything, right? And it was sciatica, and I could hardly get out of my car and walk to his front door. And I walked in, I was like, oh my God, this just came on me all of a sudden. I can't really walk. And at that time, I said, well, I have to call my parents. I don't know why. I don't remember why I had to call my parents. But I said, before we go anywhere, I have to call my parents. And so my dad picks up the phone, and immediately I got this intuitive hit. I said, how you doing, Dad? And he says, well, I have this sciatica that's going down from my hip all the way to my ankle. I said, which side, Dad, is it on your left side? He's like, yeah. I said, Dad, just bear with me, but I'm experiencing it too. So let's just release it. And within 5 minutes of doing whatever it is I did, Jennifer, my pain was gone and his pain was gone. So this is the thing I'm sharing this also because we intuitives, empaths, at least in my generation, I was often told not to feel those things, right? Don't talk about that in front of people, because I could walk in a room and I could tell you what was going on with everybody, which was overwhelming at times. But I was also told not to be like that. And so that's what I spent decades hiding or running from, is that feeling or intuitive feeling that I get when I'm thinking of someone or when I'm with someone, and I can feel their mental or emotional pain or angst. And it was something I was very afraid of, but now I've integrated it. It's who I am. It's who I've always been. It serves me when I work with clients. It serves me when I'm dealing with family issues. I can kind of lean in and then go, okay, I don't need to talk about that because they're already dealing with the solution. So I don't need to address it, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the long way round to how I got here.
Your life is your message. Like, your life is your purpose. I can relate to what you're saying about shoving down your gifts as well. I mean, I used to feel the same way when I was a kid. I was always told that I was too sensitive.
Oh my gosh, all the time.
And then I had an additional attachment to, or fear, I should say, around revealing those gifts, even as recently as several years ago, because my mother, she's passed several years ago now, but she was diagnosed with a mental illness when she was alive. And so I had an additional fear around, if I start allowing my gifts to be visible, will people think I'm crazy? That was before I became more educated, right? Around, because there are distinct differences.
Yes, there is.
Intuitive gifts and a true mental illness. But so I can completely relate to what you're saying. And I appreciate you sharing your heart. And that's a great segue into the next question that I wanted to ask, because what significance do you believe that clarity of one's, their mission or their purpose have in regard to embodying themselves as a conscious leader?
Oh, that's a big question, because
I know, I pull out the big guns.
No, I appreciate that. I think that there's a lot of people that think their purpose is involved with the business or the job they do. That's my purpose, right?
Yeah.
I'm a mother and a wife. That's my purpose. Or, I am a corporate CEO. That's my purpose. So it kind of gets convoluted because people use what they think their job is to define themselves and therefore define their purpose. And I think the gift of this last year was to really slow down enough to really define what your purpose is from within yourself, not outside of yourself. And so in order to be a conscious leader, or during this time, Jennifer, I was meditating one day, asking what is mine to do, which is what I often do in meditation, just to be clear, just to clarify. And I heard loudly, activate the light. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. Because years ago when I started on this path, I heard that too, that I heard, you are a conduit of spirit. I was like, all right, I can do that. I surrender, I submit, I will be that. But also a bridge And I was like, really? I'm one of the bridges? Okay. And then this year I heard activate the light. And so I've been calling light leaders, and there's so many that are not consciously awake. So therefore, I don't know that they know that that's part of their purpose. So that's kind of a roundabout way of saying that finding your purpose, for me at least, keeps me focused. And my purpose has not changed a lot over the 25 years I've been trying to work on purpose. You know, it really hasn't changed. It's expanded, but it's not different. You know, it's not like in my 20s, your purpose is to be a mom or be an actress or that's your purpose. No, it's always been to be a conduit for spirit, a light leader, a conscious leader, to be consciously awake, to be self-responsible. All of those are part of my particular purpose. Mm-hmm. So can I read a quote to you by Catherine Ponder?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because it's about purpose. So in my book, Live an Empowered Life, a 30-Day Journey, I have affirmations that I wrote that I worked during my divorce that I felt really were helpful. But I also have inspiring quotes peppered throughout the book to keep people focused. And so Catherine Ponder says, each of us come forth on this earth plane with the divine plan wrapped within our soul nature. This divine plan longs to manifest for us. Calling on it releases it. It matters not what age you are, how long you have lived, what you have done or not done with your life. It will lead you to your good. So when you call on what your life purpose is, when you activate that within yourself, then it will always lead us to our good, to our better yet to be. And we just have to trust that, which is really hard for me. Trust is a challenge for me at times, many times. But I do believe that we are, everyone on the planet, whether you are an empath or not, is a divine spark, because the divine has light in all of us. And we all look different because our purpose is slightly different from the person next to us. So to think that we are all supposed to be doing the same thing like lemmings is ridiculous.
The way that many people have been programmed.
Oh my God, which is, you know, I guess, like I was saying earlier, I would look back on my divorce and say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Maybe that's what 2020 is. We're going to look back and go, wow, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I think in the shutdown and the slowing down, more individuals are waking up to what is there, that they are a divine spark. They want something more than what they were told they should be or have or do. And I just had a conversation with a young woman who started her own small business called Roho Goods, which is Swahili for spirit or kindness. And she sells artisan products that come out of Kenya. She works with 4 different artisan groups. So, and the reason why she's doing that is she wants to help eradicate poverty with those particular groups of women. So I think we're all waking up and our purpose. And she said, if you told me I was going to be doing this, I would never have thought that. And I think it's the same for me. You know, if you told me I would be leading or activating light leaders and healing people intuitively and guiding them that way, you know, well, of course, I was told I wasn't supposed to be any of those things. So it was never on my radar, really, except that divine spark in my 20s called me on the journey to where I am now. And so I now surrender into that guidance more often. I would like to say daily, every hour, minute of the day, but I would be lying if I said that, because I am a feisty redhead and I do have to kick and scream a few times before I say, okay, God, I'll do what you say.
Well, that's the human, you know, I think it's human for us to do that, right? Because by default, we each have our own ideas based upon our mind's past experiences and our environmental conditioning in terms of what we believe to be or not to be possible. And so when we come up against something that doesn't align with those beliefs, we have a tendency to kick and scream a little bit.
Thank you for the permission, Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
So it's okay for everyone who's kicking and screaming out there. I think, the key is having the awareness of that, and then to go have the willingness to go within and gain a deeper understanding as to why that is. I think when we do that, it allows us to embrace change with more ease, grace, and flow, because change is inevitable, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so going back to the idea of purpose for a moment, in my book, Live an Empowered Life, a 30-day journey, I built it to be a journey in the sense of you kind of start out slow. It's an actual interactive workbook that you get a physical book, and then you interact with my website because I have videos and prompts and things like that support the individual while they're doing the work in the book. But halfway through, my idea was to help the individual kind of begin to uproot beliefs and get the garbage out of their head so they can actually begin to see the truth of who they are. And then halfway through, there's a couple of exercises that helps you to get clear on what your purpose is in this particular segment of your life. And I've led it as a book study a few times, and people have gotten huge value, especially, it's interesting. And there was this woman who's in her I think she's closer to 70. And when she hit the purpose part, and she had just finished a master's program for herself, she was like, whoa. I mean, some of this I already knew, but there were some parts in here of what my purpose is that I had been ignoring all my life. So yeah, in order to be fully you, it's important to be consciously awake and to know what your purpose is, so that when you get kind of sidetracked, you can get back on the path, back into the journey of where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned this earlier in our conversation, but there always are people out there waking up, right? But especially this year, a lot of people, their core beliefs and way that they've been living their entire lives has been challenged, and upside down. It's thrown, and I think that's the best term to use, literally thrown so many people into a state of reflection around, what's most important, what's their purpose, why are they here? But so many people, despite being, having that niggly feeling, they end up not taking action because the inability to see how to get from where they are now to that place, it overwhelms them. So my question for you is, what advice do you have for other conscious leaders who are feeling called to make a bigger impact with their mission and message? What advice would you give them in terms of an action that will help them move forward?
So the first thing I heard was connection and then collaboration. And so I think the thing that this year has shown us is, while we all think we're going to an office building and sitting in a cubicle and doing our job and we're all working together, now being at home, you have to really reach out for connection and collaboration. And I think being called to be a light leader or a conscious leader, it feels really big and possibly daunting. And so I would say to reach out to other like-minded people, other conscious leaders, and connect with them and form some sort of a friendship or a bond, because there's so many of us out there, Jennifer. I mean, that's what actually kind of accidentally happened for me this year because of my book being out. I had so many people asking to interview me, like yourself, and I fell in love with so many of these individuals who, mostly women, by the way. I don't know why that is. Well, I have an opinion about that, but I won't say it out loud right now. But these women that are doing similar work, and instead of being in competition, right? Another C word. They wanted to collaborate. They wanted to connect. They wanted to support. And I think that if you have an inkling that you might be a light leader, a conscious leader, I'm going to tell you straight up, you are. Because if that inkling is happening, it's best to go with it and not avoid it, from my experience, and then reach out and make connection with other people that are like-minded. Listen to podcasts like this one, podcasts that inspire you and give you hope, and then begin to collaborate. And you can even just collaborate with people in your personal friendship circle on how to live your life on purpose, on how to be a support in your community. Because I think that that's what this has shown is there are lots of people that just went into their houses, closed the door, shut the blinds, and did what they did virtually, right? But they weren't connecting. And I know for a fact, in order for these virtual things to work, oh, here we go. Okay, Jennifer. In order for the virtual existence to happen, it runs on energy. And we as human beings, just like everything else on the planet, rocks, birds, animals, we're electrical. And so because we are that divine spark, and it's electricity, it is an energy system that moves through our body. The ancient Chinese call it qi. But in order for the virtual world, like everybody's on Zoom or Skype or FaceTime, or in order for that heart-to-heart connection to happen, you have to be willing to allow that energy system that you are to connect with the other person. Otherwise, it's just a couple of talking heads, right? And so that to me is why we're here. We're on planet Earth to connect, to collaborate, and to support each other and not be in competition, because there's no thing really, and no one, honestly, against us, except for our own inner voice that comes from probably your family of origin or generationally passed down. You shouldn't be so sensitive. You shouldn't say those things out loud, that kind of stuff. So in order for the new yet to be, the new world to come into some kind of order out of this chaos we are in, it's important to be aware of the energy system that you are and that everyone else is. And a lot of people dim their light. A lot of people hide. And if you just open your heart, this is what I teach my clients, to open their heart and allow the love that they are to fill their body. You will find that you will be divinely protected and guided. But B, that love will radiate out to the people that want to be that as well. So just by being love, you become a leader. You become a conscious leader, just simply by being love first.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's no pun intended when I said that just now, but I love that. It's true. As humans, we're also really cute about how we like to complicate everything. And it's really not that complicated.
No, it's not. It's really simple.
It is. And it just involves our willingness and that little thing that you mentioned earlier in our conversation called trust. We just have to, be willing to do the trust fall, with God, with the universe, with our divine support team, everyone that's here on this planet right now at this time in history. You're alive. You have a purpose, get tapped in at a deeper level to what that looks like. Susan, I just am loving our conversation. I could talk to you for days. Susan, how can someone find you if they are interested in connecting with you and learning more about the work that you do?
So I have a website that's pretty extensive, actually, because I do quite a few things now. It's called susanburrell.com, pretty simple, BURRELL.com. And you can find my book and learn, a little bit more about what the book is actually like. My podcasts, Empowering Chats with Susan Burrell, are on there. I also do guided meditations that I put on Insight Timer, which is a fabulous app. If you're wanting to learn how to meditate, that's the app for you. But there's also amazing practitioners that have guided meditations and courses on that app as well, mine included. So there's a plethora of stuff you can drop into. Jennifer, I have a Facebook group called Live Your Empowered Life. And in the group, we do workshops. And next year, we're creating a whole bunch of new workshops. But this last year, I ran a workshop called Are You a Light Leader? And it was a 5-day thing that people got a lot of value out of. So yeah, and if you want to contact me, there's a little thing at the top of the website that says contact, and you click on that and you can send me a message.
Wonderful. Susan, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I'm honored to have had you as a guest and to have received, all of the wisdom and messages that you've shared today. And I know our listeners are going to receive so much value from that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. And you know what? Can I give your listeners a gift?
Sure.
I have a guided meditation. It's called Out of the Box Thinking. And you can get it at susanburrell.com/free-gift-meditation. So I'd love to gift that to your listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you so much for coming on as a guest.
You are welcome. It has been my honor.
Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can live your purpose and make an impact as a conscious leader, visit me at jenniferspoor.com. And while you're there, be sure to join my email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.